So now we're going to look at antibodies. And so what are antibodies? Antibodies are substances created by lymphocytes, which does a lot of carries out a lot of things, and which basically blocks the function of pathogens. So first let's look at the structure of it and how this aids. So first of all, we get, they're basically a protein molecule, and so so firstly, there are all of those are actually protein molecules. These parts. So what we see that these are heavy protein chains, and these are the sugars. These are chains of sugar molecules, and then we have the shaded region, which we can say as these are the variable regions. They can vary because they have to vary because I mean they're the ones which will bind to the pathogens, and the shape of the pathogen or the antigen of the pathogen will change. They are not the same always. So these variable regions, the shaded ones, they're the ones who bind to pathogens, which I'm showing in purple. So they are the ones who bind to pathogens. So and one more thing to note is that we have a type of bond in between our polypeptide chain, which we can say as disulfide bond. So let's dive a little deeper into it, and we call this polypeptide chain a lighter polypeptide chain, a light polypeptide chain, because uh, this this chain has less peptide in it. So you can say that's the reason. And now let's look, go a little deeper. So this heavy polypeptide chain, meaning there is a lot of peptide in it. This part, this protein actually aids a lot in structural support. And then we have this disulfide bond between proteins together. So these both are proteins, and we got a bond here. So what it does is that it gives a little flexibility for this to this to move, like this to move and like attach to the pathogen. And then also the disulfide bond near bottom gives first of all, the disulfide bond primarily what they do is they hold the protein chains which are separate. They are not connected. These two are not connected. They are separate. So these disulfide bonds shown in green are the ones which make them they bond them, or holds them together, the both protein chain. And the other one is that they give them flexibility, as I said, like right now. And we have the shaded part, this the this part. So this is the variable region, and this has to be variable because the pathogens are variable, right? So these are known as variable regions. For different pathogens, you will have different uh, shape. So and can shape change depending on antigen, and it binds to the antigen of the pathogen. Or not only pathogen, it can also bind to the antigen of our, for instance, a dead cell of our own body. So moving on. Three, two, one, go. So how antibodies function? So antibodies function in a lot of ways, but we can categorize them into three main points. So first of all, they neutralize the toxins produced by the pathogen. They produce a sort of chemicals which can be harmful to our cells, and later they neutralize pathogens by, this part actually says like the active working, like they release a chemical such, the antibodies work such a way that it actually uh, attacks the pathogen itself, and later it marks the antigen. So let's start from the beginning. So first of all, the neutralization part it can do in two ways. First of all, they can surround the pathogens. I mean the I mean the so the anti I mean the antibodies. What can they do? What they can do is they they surround them in such a way so they cannot enter in his the toxin in such a way so they cannot enter these cells, like they surround the pathogen in such a way so they cannot I mean live. And the second one is like they can act as antitoxin, like they themselves uh, can act as a chemical which actually don't let the toxin do their task. So they are acting as antitoxins, so they can neutralize the toxin in both ways, doing this or by acting as antitoxin. Moving on, neutralizing the pathogen itself. So by doing three things. First of all, they cover parts of their, parts of, like, this is a pathogen, so they can just cover a part of them so that they cannot function. Second on, moving on. So this is similar, like, so there's a pathogen, here's a pathogen, here's a pathogen. So clumping or like gluing the pathogens together. So this process is called agglutination. So here's a lot of pathogens. So what they do is the antibodies like surround them in such a way and they compile them together in a like what should I say, like a mass of cell, like, so they like surround them and like they try to clump them together into one so they can like live, and if they produce toxins, they're in a small space together and they can be affected by their toxins themselves. So this is the process, like clumping them. And the third one is like binding to parts and attracts chemicals to destroy the cells. Like, so what they can do is like they bind to a pathogen and they can attract chemicals, for instance hydrogen peroxide, so they can come and like attack the destroy the pathogen. And last is that like a pathogen, if you're like if an antigen is attached to it, so the phagocyte can recognize this antigen and later it can easily digest the pathogen. So these are the three main ways, three main categories of destroying that how antigen functions. And there, there are a lot of ways in each categories again. So that's it.